A massive development on the horizon. There's a discussion proposal between Britain First and Patriotic Alternative. This is so eagerly awaited, to be honest, because Britain First are quite hazy on what they truly believe. In our view, they're deliberately vague. They're not clear on whether they are true nationalists in the mould of old school BNP. They are not clear on whether they oppose ethnic demographic shift. Mr. Robinson infamously obfuscated when he was asked or pressured by Patriotic Alternative activists concerning demographics, whether he opposed the demographic shift from indigenous to non-indigenous. Mr. Robinson, in true Zio-Sivna agent style, was deceitful, and he made it about Muslims, suggesting the shift is due to Islam, which is actually not the case.
The replacement is Islamic. Go have a kid! Go have a family!
The intimation here was that he's okay with 3 million Hong Kongers and millions of sub-Saharan Africans coming over to the UK, as long as none of them are of the faith group which his Zio financial backers are in a propaganda war against.
Shill.
But who knows what Mr. Golding truly believes nowadays? Is he masking his true beliefs of ethno-nationalism to benefit his wallet? Or is there a difference between Britain First views and those of the most active British Nationalist Party in the UK, Patriotic Alternative? We would love to know if Mr. Golding believes somebody can be South African, then British, and then Middle Eastern, like Brian of Tel Aviv. And I'd love to know if he agrees with his pal, Mr. Robinson, on what a true Englishman is. I'd really love to know if he believes a man like this is a true Englishman.
This man is as English as me. This man is as English as me. This man is as English as me.
Again, in Tel Aviv. This is Brian of London. I am in Tel Aviv. Much as... No, I'm not going to say that line. Anyway, yes, I'm no longer in London, as people have asked. I left there 10 years ago, moved to Israel, and I'm an Israeli, an indigenous Jew in Israel.
If it transpires there's no divergence between Mr. Golding and Patriotic Alternative, the question here would be, will they work together? A union between the two parties would be groundbreaking, and it would send shockwaves around the dissident right circle, and it would make the conservative right sit up and take notice. If a distinct group like Britain First could join hands with Patriotic Alternative, what next? Would another small group, such as perhaps For Britain, ditch the Zio-Sivnak grift and the liberalism and begin to represent 60% of British people? 60%. According to Gerard Batten's recent poll, 60% of British respondents were ethno-nationalists. Personally, we believe Mr. Golding believes everything Mr. Collett believes. Mr. Golding, though, is savvy, and he knows if he speaks his mind on the real controversial talking points, those on ethnic makeup and demographics, he will lose out on financial support.
Shill.
We also believe now is a precarious time due to the prevalence of Patriotic Alternative. Just imagine if Mr. Golding reorients his ship to ethno-nationalism publicly, then he's got the headache of worrying about his subordinates jumping ship to the bigger and more popular one, that of Patriotic Alternative, leaving Mr. Golding with an even more of a rump organisation and less subordinates to press for cash. Mr. Robinson is realising the cash cow of the Zio agenda against Muslims is drying up. He's looking for new avenues to grift from after enriching himself serving the Zio agenda for a decade. Miss Towler is one of the few people who is capable of drawing out whether Mr. Golding and Britain First are on the same page as traditional British nationalists such as Patriotic Alternative. People want to see this dialogue, and they want to see it as soon as possible. Alas, there's a bit of a snag in the works though. Laura Towler has confirmed Ashlea Simon is willing to dialogue with Miss Towler, but there's an odd condition put onto it. The condition is that Miss Towler attends an event in Rotherham or Bradford, and she's only willing, as she being Ashlea Simon, Ashlea's only willing to talk to people who quote and unquote walk the walk. Let me tell you something. As an outsider, Laura Towler, Miss Towler, walks the walk. That's for sure. Anybody who's saying she doesn't walk the walk is unfamiliar with her work. The walk that she walks is the one that not many patriots have the fortitude to walk. She's broken away from the shackles of self-censorship. She's willing to say what she actually believes. She talks about her concerns about demographics and the Great Replacement. She's an open advocate for the 14 words. It's my understanding that Mr. Golding is an ethno-nationalist at heart, but he's so fearful of speaking his beliefs directly and unequivocally that he never dedicates any time or any real time to talking about the shift in demographics in a direct fashion. He may well make allusions to it here and there, but that's the most he's ever done.
Have you seen that famous photo from Warsaw Metro where only white people were on that photo, and it shocked Europe? They said that it's because Polish people are chauvinists, because we don't mix with other nations. Have you seen maybe that? And if not, what do you think about that? Wherever you look, there are so few foreigners, only tourists.
Yeah, well, that's the way it should be. That's what we want in England.
Miss Towler, on the other hand, is unrelenting. She's constantly talking about the subject, a subject which opposes the Ziosivnat and globalist agendas, a subject which flies in the face of the zeitgeist, the spirit of the day, making her an iconoclast. Mr. Golding and his band of middle-aged blokes and Ashlea Simon are not iconoclastic in my view. So Miss Towler is walking the walk. She's walking the walk that Mr. Golding is too fearful to walk. Anybody can waltz into a town and hand out flyers here and there for an hour as a stunt, but to say what you truly believe when you're an ethno-nationalist whilst putting your name and face to those statements is something that many folks will never do because they fear the repercussions from society and the authorities, the globalists. Mr. Golding, whether he's done it deliberately or inadvertently, he's replaced old school nationalism, the traditional and long-standing and natural ethno-nationalism, which includes race realism and anti-individualism. He's replaced all this with the Ziosivnat takes of the Robinson camp, which is actually peddled by some sections of the mainstream media too, which says it all, which tells you how much of a non-iconoclast Mr. Golding is. He's putting out the same takes as newspapers such as the Daily Mail and commentators on the conservative right. Can somebody tell me how Mr. Golding is walking the walk when he's not doing anything other than picking on an easy target which the Ziosivnats want him to do, whilst of course he's monetizing it all through stunts? His old mentor, Mr. Griffin, must be disappointed because it seems Mr. Golding took up the offer.
We were approached. I was approached. We were offered money from the United States, and all they wanted was two things. They only wanted us to concentrate on Islam, and they wanted us only to focus on that, and it only came with one other thing. They wanted us to drop our criticism of the banking system.
We've got to bring Mr. Sen into the matter now. Ex-BNP man Jack Sen was asked why patriots target Muslims and Islam. His answer was because they can. He's essentially saying the country, the zeitgeist and the globalists allow a level of bias against Muslims as it's not a controversial thing. Even Boris Johnson and the Tories did a bit of it before the general election. That's because it serves the nation's foreign policy as well as the interests of a particular country in the Middle East, beginning with the letter I, not Iran, nor Iraq. So Britain First is not doing anything radical at all. Let's get that clear. All they've done is served up the Ziosivnat agenda, spewing out the same propaganda pieces about Muslims which the mainstream media outlets also feature. It's hardly anything that is a departure from the establishment and the zeitgeist. We've already touched on the fact that Mr. Golding monetizes his stunts. It's our belief Mr. James Goddard has correctly assessed Britain First's operation.
And the last time I checked, like, Paul Golding was an ethno-nationalist. Like, you know, he wants the same as us. Unfortunately, he won't say it because he loves the shekels too much that he gets in donations, and he wouldn't want to upset the donors. But like I said, I don't believe Britain First are a political movement. It's a street movement that does political stunts to garner donations.
So, like, look at what Britain First and the Tommy Robinson movement actually are. They were businesses set up to take donations so that they could keep doing stunts. Tommies were bigger than Britain
I agree.
Firsts.
This is the point I'm trying to address.
They never were movements.
But this is the point I'm trying to stress.
Shill.